Dean Goldschmidt, as I found, he's a tough act to follow, but we would like you to sort of provide some concluding comments for us.
I have followed Tom Stossel for the past 25 years. He's always been a tough act to follow. Look, I think that what was said was very well said. You know, if you think about it, if there is absolutely no risk, there is no benefit. You cannot get a system that is outside of 0 degrees Kelvin that doesn't have a certain risk associated with it. I mean, if you want to reduce risk to 0, it's a very simple equation. Nothing will happen. Nothing good for sure. Regulatory agencies have the role to limit as much as possible for the public risk associated with technologies that have shown some effectiveness. Now, I'd like to mention to you one important technology that came to us a long time ago. It was somewhere in England, not in a big city, you know, kind of on the countryside, by a doctor, country doc, named Jenner. And he was a smart cookie. He kind of noted that farmers, it was middle of the epidemics of smallpox, a really, really, really bad disease. And he noticed one thing. Farmers had less smallpox than the rest of the population. So he went to the farm, tried to figure out what was going on, and he noticed that cows were having smallpox. So he thought, cows are having smallpox. That's odd. What could it have to do with the fact that farmers have less smallpox? So he scratched a cow, got a little bit of the stuff that was in one of these little delicious pustule that happened to the cows, and picked up a young kid. I think he was 8 years old. Scratched his skin, put a bit of that stuff he had taken from the cow, slapped it on the scar, and told the kid to come back a few weeks later. I think it was 6 weeks later. And then he did something totally out of control. He scratched the kid on the other arm, and he took now the content of a lesion of smallpox and slapped it on the arm of the kid. Now, two things could have happened at that point. One is that the kid would have developed smallpox, and Dr. Jenner would be hanging in a tree, you know, in England, and probably not being remembered by anybody. Or the kid could have been immune to developing smallpox, which is actually what happened. That was the first experiment of vaccination, and vaccination in public health has probably been one of the 3 most important discoveries in the history of humankind. So now think about for 1 second that this would have gone to FDA regulation.
IRB.
Not to mention, as Tom said, the IRB of the small village that Dr. Jenner was in. Look, sometimes to do great things, it takes a lot of guts. And I think when we talk about a strong FDA, which is the only solution to get the right level of regulatory activity within the progression of the medical enterprise. And a strong FDA means just one thing, is that when you look at the pendulum that's swinging around and you decide, this is the point that we will tolerate. If you can show me that the risk associated with your technology does not exceed it, you're going to be fine. If something happens, we're going to be blasted, we're going to be in the newspapers as an agency, but you know what? We have enough strength, we have enough belief in the importance of what we do that we're willing to take that blame. And I tell you, there's something very interesting. There's this magic number, 1 in 25,000. It kind of struck me because I was reading newspapers, and there were two pieces of news. One is that there was a drug called taclopidine that was creating a problem called TP, thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, in 1 in 25,000 patients. And it's a bad complication. And on another page, there was a report that Firestone tires on SUV were blowing up. And it just happened that it was 1 in 25,000 SUV with that tire that would blow up. And I thought, wow, that's not on the radar screen. And that was what Bill was talking about when he said, you know, the Burke-Charlie valve, it was such a rare instance that you could not test. We don't have the resource. We're very bad at dealing with these things that never happens, or practically never happens. You know, I just went to Europe. There is no preparation whatsoever in Europe anymore for a snowstorm. Nothing. Why? Because it didn't happen for more than 25 years. And so how can you prepare and invest the dollars that it would cost to actually be ready for that kind of complication? And let's talk about complication for a second. When the New England Journal of Medicine published a very interesting study by the Society of Surgery in the United States that had reviewed 4 very garden variety procedures, knee replacement and things like that, gallbladders, and looked for the best hospital in the United States and the worst hospital in the United States. The best hospital in the United States has half the death of the worst hospital in the United States when the patients were going through these procedures. But guess what the complication rate was between the two types of hospitals? The same. You would have said, come on, how is that possible that the best hospital cannot tell me which patient is going to have the complication? Or that something happened in the bad hospital that led to the complication? Well, it just happened that people, us, are not perfect either. Let's make sure that the FDA understands that. And actually, we will have a certain susceptibility for developing a complication if we get a certain procedure. The difference between the two hospitals was not the ability to predict that somebody would have a complication or to avoid it. The difference was the ability to cope with it. And that's what we need a strong FDA to be, is to be an organization that is ready to be extremely stringent on making sure that people have done their homework when they develop a technology and say that it's going to be good for humans, that actually they've done their homework. But that strong FDA has always also to be able to agree that from time to time there will be a complication that was unpredictable. And if that happens, that they're ready to stand strong and to say, look, we recognize that we didn't pick it up, it happened, we will always try to prevent it from happening, but you know what? Unless you go to 0 degree Kelvins, there's going to be a certain risk, and we can't avoid it. So thank you very much.